Right friends, welcome back to English comprehension and vocabulary. Today, as announced yesterday, is on Times of India editorial, Ring Fence RBI, and tomorrow we are going to deliberate Economic Times editorial, that is Budget 2017. Why do we need an institutional evaluation mechanism? So tomorrow we are going to deliberate on Economic Times article, Budget 2017, why do we need an institutional evaluation mechanism? And today we are going to deliberate on Ring Fence RBI. The meaning of this Ring Fence RBI is to protect the autonomy and credibility of RBI. Government should not encroach upon the powers of Reserve Bank of India. Morning at 11 o'clock, we discussed an article written by Niti Aayog official. He stated that the supreme authority lies with the government and it should not be construed as intruding into the authority, or you can say autonomy of Reserve Bank of India. But this editorial of Times of India says that ring fence RBI, don't allow RBI autonomy to be compromised, because after demonetization, some experts felt that, including Y.V. Reddy, including Bimal Jalan, felt that the Reserve Bank of India's autonomy and credibility are compromised subsequent to demonetization. Right, ring fence has got 2-3 meanings. Let us look at the first meaning. This is with regard to ring fencing. Ring fencing means, some time ago, around 2 years ago, Reserve Bank of India gave instructions to the banks, foreign banks, whoever wants to establish their banks here. Reserve Bank of India gave instructions that the foreign banks in future, if they want branches to be established in our country, should establish their own subsidiaries, wholly owned subsidiaries here, to ring fence the operations from the operations on foreign land. That means, if a foreign bank collapses, here its a subsidiary should not collapse. So, to ring fence the Indian banks from their parent foreign banks, Reserve Bank gave those instructions. So, ring fencing has got 3-4 meanings, and the first meaning is insulating an entity from their parent company for risks. And if a wholly owned subsidiary is established here, if the parent bank, suppose Citibank fails in foreign country, Indian Citibank will not fail. So, this is nothing but ring fencing Indian operations. So, to insulate an entity from their parent company for risks, that is ring fencing. The second meaning is also there. The second meaning is, some 10,000 crores are allotted for agriculture. Let us assume some 10,000 crores of rupees allocated for agriculture, and they should not be diverted. They should be used for agriculture only. So, in these circumstances, under these circumstances also, you call agricultural expenditure must be ring fenced. It should not be diverted for other purposes. So, protecting something from risks, protecting something from external encroachment, in that sense this ring fencing is used, and in the instant case it is used to protect autonomy, credibility of Reserve Bank of India. So, ring fencing can be used in several ways, and one important meaning is insulating or protecting an entity from their parent company for risks. There also this ring fencing is used, and this term quite often appears in newspapers, please do not forget. And let us come back. While one can debate, there is a lot of debate going on subsequent to demonetization. Some people say good, some people say bad, that is going on. While one can debate the benefits, these are plus points, and ill effects of demonetization, that is quite common. There are some ill effects, there are some benefits, people are debating about them. So, while one can debate the benefits and ill effects of demonetization, harm to RBI's reputation and therefore, a decline in its credibility, and in small dashes the sentence what it means to support the viewpoint, harm to RBI's reputation and therefore, a decline in its credibility belongs indisputably, there is no dispute about it, belongs indisputably to the negative side of the ledger. Demonetization has got positives and negatives, but RBI's reputation, if you look at it, that is on the negative side. So, RBI's reputation was harmed. What is meant by reputation? Reputation means APJ Abdul Kalam. Reputation means admiration for someone or something. Our election commission is a reputed organization. Our Reserve Bank of India is a reputed organization. APJ Abdul Kalam is a reputed scientist. So, like that, reputation is respect or admiration for someone or something is reputation. Then the next point is credibility. I have already told you in the previous lectures, credibility. Y has borrowed rupees 2000 from X. Y is debtor, X is creditor. Y borrowed rupees 2000 from X, stating that I will give you back within 1 day. But 2 months passed, 1 year passed, he is not giving back. So, there is no credibility, there is no trust, there is no belief. So, that is the meaning of credibility. Credibility may mean to either person or organization, and in this context this word is used meaning credibility or trust on Reserve Bank of India, belief on Reserve Bank of India was lost, and he used the word ledger. What is the meaning of ledger? Ledger basically shows expenditure on one side, receipts on the other side. So, the expenditure side is negative. So, when we are discussing about credibility of Reserve Bank of India after demonetization, definitely without any debate, it is on the ledger lesser side or expenditure side. So, it is on the negative side. Demonetization may have positives and negatives, but when you look at RBI's reputation, it is undoubtedly on the negative side. So, that is the meaning of this sentence, right. So, harm to the RBI's reputation and therefore, decline in its credibility, decline on in its trust, belief, indisputably. Indisputably means there is no second thought. So, indisputably to the negative side of the ledger. So, negative side only. So much so that last week, so to emphasize this viewpoint, he used so much so that last week the central bank's employees through their unions, this in between 2 commas, additional information. Please be careful while reading the sentence. Last week, the central bank's employees, he want to add further information through their unions, then wrote to governor. He is telling in past tense, that is why he used wrote to Governor Urjit Patel to protect RBI's autonomy. It is not just unions who are worried. Former governors Y. Venugopal Reddy, Bimal Jalan have also expressed concern, have also expressed concern, right. So, when he is linking to the present event, normally in English this have followed by the third form is used, that is have expressed. If it is had expressed, that shows something much before. It is not linked to the present instance. If something is linked to the present instance, this type of sentence formulation will be there, right. So, here former governors Y. V. Reddy, Bimal Jalan have also expressed concern. So, indisputably this is towards the negative side, that is what it means to convey. And here the other word autonomy. Autonomy means right of an organization to be independent and govern itself. Last week we discussed. So, autonomy is lost, credibility is lost, trust is lost, belief is lost. So, RBI's autonomy is undermined in this case. Such concern stems from the manner such concern, there is some point. Why are we concluding in such a way? We are concluding that RBI's credibility is lost, everything is lost. Why we are concluding in that way? We are concluding in that way because there is some reason. Such concern stems from the manner in which RBI appears to have gone ahead with the decision to ban high value notes without much discussion within a day of the government having reportedly advised it to do so, as well as general veil of opacity over its deliberations. Why we are coming to this conclusion is, when government said please implement demonetization, it has straight away gone for it without telling government of India that we require some time for printing the notes. And another important aspect is RBI is maintaining opacity, veil of opacity, and even after 20 days, because the deposit of notes ended on 30th December, and the total notes, how many notes have been came into the bank's coffers, it is only 5 minutes job, but even after 20 days also, Reserve Bank of India is not revealing how many currency notes have gone back into the banking system, that demonetized notes. Reserve Bank of India is maintaining too much opacity, it is not transparent. So, this conclusion that credibility is lost, trust is lost, everyone is coming to the conclusion that because of 2-3 reasons, it has not questioned the government, it has not asked for time for its implementation, only one day it was implemented. And next point is its opacity, it is functioning as an opaque organization, not as a transparent organization. So, because of opacity, because of secrecy in operations, everyone came to the conclusion that RBI lost its autonomy. So, this stems from the fact, veil of opacity. These things I will show you with pictures. Quite often we look at this stems from the fact. This word is quite frequently used. Stems from the fact, that means to start or develop as a result of something. During the childhood, the boy has got some bad incident with regard to water. The boy has got some bad incident with regard to water during his childhood, and his fear of water, even after becoming a grown up also, his fear has not gone. His fear of water stems from an incident during his childhood. So, stems from the fact, this is quite frequently used. This is to start or develop as a result of something. So, here in Reserve Bank of India case also, we are coming to the conclusion because of certain facts, because the way it is working, because of all these things, we came to the conclusion. So, stems from the fact means started to develop as a result of something, right. And the last one, please see, as well as, that means I have already told you why we came to the conclusion, because it stems from certain facts, and at the same time as well as means another reason, the general veil of opacity over its deliberations. Normally, Reserve Bank of India is considered to be transparent in demonetization. It should be transparent, but it is maintaining opacity. Veil. Veil means, all of you are familiar with, a piece of material owned by women to protect themselves. Normally, it is common in Muslim religion, and this veil means this one small cloth which is covering the face in Western countries also. So, that means RBI is not maintaining transparency, a veil of secrecy is on its face. RBI face is not visible, a veil of secrecy is on its face. Next one is opaque, opaque and transparent. Please look into this. Opaque means preventing light from travelling through, you cannot see. Then transparent, it is a see-through. So, government actions must be transparent. And in this case, a veil of secrecy, or you can say a veil of opacity is on the face of Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India is covered with some cloth and truth is not evident to the humanity. So, a veil of secrecy, a veil of opacity is there. So, this is another reason for coming to this conclusion. So, when we are concluding that somebody is a bad boy, we should have some reasons. So, there are some reasons in front of us, and this veil of opacity is one main reason, right. Let us move on to the next one. Next paragraph is, it has, for example, been remarkably silent. Subsequent to demonetization, it was remarkably silent. It has been remarkably silent from that date onwards till today. That is why it is used. It has been remarkably silent, has been from that date till today. It has been remarkably silent. Only one time or so the Reserve Bank of India governor spoke to the press, and during the aftermath of demonetization, subsequent to demonetization, it maintained a lot of secrecy when it should have been in the driver's seat. Normally, it should dictate the shots, it should call the shots, it should give the press conferences, it should communicate with the people, but conspicuously it is silent. RBI as India's most important regulator, India's most important regulator, which is vested with monetary policy, and at the same time when the money is guaranteed by the government, but Reserve Bank of India governor, please look into this, here on the rupees 500 note, guaranteed by the central government, the money of value rupees 500, when you go to the market, you should get goods worth rupees 500, that is guaranteed by the central government. This is one important aspect. This is guaranteed by the central government, and at the same time, who promises you? The promise is given by Reserve Bank of India governor. Please look into this. Reserve Bank of India gives a promise to you. I promise to pay the bearer. So, RBI governor has got a vital role when the money value of rupees 500 is guaranteed by the central government, but the authority which is giving you that is Reserve Bank of India governor. So, Reserve Bank of India governor promises to pay rupees 500 to the bearer of this note. So, lot of responsibility is there on the Reserve Bank of India governor, but aftermath of demonetization, he was silent. Aftermath, this word is to be used, not always. Aftermath is used only after unpleasant things, not after pleasant things. You cannot use aftermath after marriage. You cannot use aftermath after first birthday of a boy, but you can use aftermath after an earthquake, aftermath after a volcanic eruption, aftermath after demonetization, because demonetization has disrupted at least some lives. So, aftermath of demonetization, aftermath is to be used the period that follows an unpleasant event or accident. The trauma to the family, aftermath of the death of the father is too severe. So, aftermath is to be used only after unpleasant events or accidents, please understand. So, after the aftermath of demonetization, subsequent to demonetization, Reserve Bank of India is silent, governor is silent, and it has to be in the driver's seat. Please read this sentence. It should have been in the driver's seat. Actually, it should have been in the driver's seat, but what is being happened? All the press conferences are answered by finance ministry officials, but not the RBI governor. So, in the driver's seat means in control, in charge of things. RBI governor is supposed to be in charge of the things, but some finance ministry governor finance ministry official is attending press conferences and answering on behalf of Reserve Bank of India, and because of all these things, everyone come to the conclusion that Reserve Bank of India's autonomy is lost, belief is lost, trust is lost, credibility is lost. Right? Let us look at the next one. Its job is not just control inflation. Its job, if RBI thinks its job is to just control inflation, it is not just only inflation, but also be the first line of defense against macroeconomic instability. Country should not lead to macroeconomic instability. Inflation is only one part of macroeconomic stability. There are other aspects. GDP is there, and there are several other aspects are there. And Reserve Bank of India's role is not just inflation, its role is also something else, to protect macroeconomic stability of the country. And it is the first line of defense against macroeconomic instability. This makes it imperative. This makes it imperative. So, the role of Reserve Bank of India is most important. So, that is why this is used. This makes it imperative for both the Patel and the centre, that means for both Urjit Patel as well as the central government, to heed warnings, to listen to the warnings given by experts. You have to take the warnings into consideration, do not keep them aside, you have to listen to the warnings. Right? Here imperative. Here, after the victory of Donald Trump, this imperative means necessary, urgent, extremely important. Under these circumstances, imperative is used. Please go back to the sentence. So, the role of Reserve Bank of India is to look at macroeconomic stability, but not inflation alone. So, it is imperative for both Urjit Patel as well as central government to listen to the warnings given by experts. Heed warnings means to listen to the warnings. So, imperative means I gave you two examples. It is imperative to move on to outcome based budget. Our budget, every year it is being presented, only allocations are made and no one is sure that whether it is spent properly or not. So, the budget should be outcome based. So, it is imperative, it is necessary, it is urgent to move on to outcome based budget. And at the same time, look at another example. Donald Trump going to become USA president within 2 days, and it is imperative for our country to devise our new ICT policy, information and communication technology policy, because he is talking about protectionism. So, H1B visas will become difficult, he is talking about protectionism. So, it is necessary, it is urgent for the country to frame our own ICT policy. So, under the meanings necessary, urgent, extremely important, in these perspectives, or with that, when such things are there, then only we use imperative. So, it is imperative for both Urjit Patel as well as central government to listen to the warnings. Heed means to pay attention to something. If experts are telling something, do not keep them aside, please listen to them. So, please listen to their advice, please listen to their warning. Under those circumstances only heed is used, not always. Right? So, frequent accidents of MiG-21 indicate that government is failed to heed the warnings about lack of safety in MiG-21. Government failed to heed the warnings. Right? So, the next point. Advanced countries have independent central banks. Advanced countries have independent central banks. Such separation of powers between monetary and fiscal authorities. What is monetary? That is basically looks at circulation of money or availability of money in the system. Fiscal means that is looked after by finance ministry, that is basically looking at expenditure as well as revenue. So, monetary is the lookout of Reserve Bank of India, fiscal is the lookout of finance ministry. Such separation of powers between monetary and fiscal authorities is what keeps an economy stable. So, for keeping the macroeconomic stability in the country, separation of powers between monetary and fiscal authorities is very much needed. Monetary is the lookout of RBI, fiscal is the lookout of Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. So, no one should encroach, especially the government should not encroach into RBI powers. India needs strong but not weak institutions. For any democracy, strong institutions are a must, and RBI should not be treated as a wing of the Finance Ministry. Why he used this sentence? Because of the reason, sometimes the joint secretary level officers in Finance Ministry are answering queries in press conferences on behalf of Reserve Bank of India. When Reserve Bank of India governor is there, what is the role of this joint secretary level officer in Finance Ministry to answer the questions? So, the article is quite critical about the functioning of RBI subsequent to demonetization. RBI's evolution through RBI Act of 1934 and responsibilities or in keeping with an emerging economy. Yesterday we discussed about emerging economy. Emerging economy means two things I would like to tell you. The countries which have high growth potential. Second thing is these countries are important. World cannot ignore these countries like India, Brazil, South Africa. World cannot ignore these countries because there are several opportunities in these countries. So, emerging economies means the countries which have high growth potential and countries cannot be ignored by world community. Unlike central banks in developed markets, developed markets central banks have some different functions. RBI's functions span an even wider range. In developed countries, the central bank's role is not that widen, but RBI's functions. So, he want to contradict something with the developed countries central banks. That is why please understand this sentence. Unlike central banks in developed markets, that means developed markets central banks are different in one perspective in comparison to our central bank. So, there is a contradictory here. So, unlike central banks in developed markets, RBI's functions span an even wider range. So, RBI has got much wider functions. Consequently, Patel needs to assert himself. Consequently, Patel need to assert himself, and the government too needs to take certain measures to preserve RBI's autonomy. Consequently, assert himself. One has to assert himself. What is the meaning of it? I will explain you. Consequently means here the meaning is as a result. Consequently means as a result, right? So, as a result of this, I gave one example here. Please look into this. A family has got rupees 10,000 per month income, and in the first week they went to shopping mall. They spent lavishly in the first week. So, here please look into this sentence. The family spent lavishly during the first week, and consequently means as a result, out of 10,000 they spent 9,000 in the first week. So, then consequently as a result the family is left with little money during the month end. So, consequently is to be used as a result of something. And the next point is assert. The CEO must assert himself. This is very important. So, asserting himself, this Raghuram Rajan asserted himself as RBI governor. Urjit Patel must assert himself as RBI governor. So, to behave in a way that expresses your confidence, importance, power. Here most important is power. This is as per RBI Act, he derives power. So, he has to assert himself. So, here the sentence meaning is consequently. So, as a result of all these things what happened during the past 2 months, Patel needs to assert himself, and the government too needs to take certain measures to preserve RBI's autonomy, right. So, this I think you understood clearly. The next statement is, one way of doing this is to define RBI's role and autonomy by statute. Statutorily, RBI's role as well as autonomy is to be defined. For example, there is one example with us. It has been given a measurable target for inflation. Inflation target is given by government. Inflation target is 4% plus or minus 2%. It is up to you. So, how to ensure is up to Reserve Bank of India. So, government gave the target 4% plus or minus 2% is the target. So, one example is that means he is telling how to ensure autonomy, credibility of RBI. One example is in front of us. The example is it has been given means the past action, he is just referring to the present. Given a measurable target for inflation and independence on how to achieve this. There are two aspects here. Government gave a target, inflation must be 4% plus or minus 2%, that should be inflation target up to March 2021. And how to ensure this? That is your lookout. We are not going to interfere in this. So, RBI has got autonomy, that means independence to achieve this with the formal explanations called for if it fails. As per the things which are given to RBI, please ensure this much inflation. If you are not able to ensure, please give some formal explanation. So, that is how organizations should function. It should also be mandatory for RBI to be transparent. As I have already told you, RBI is not working in a transparent way for the past 2 months. How much money it got after demonetization, it is not revealing. Nowadays, everything is available within 5 minutes. Why RBI is not revealing? So, it is not working transparently. So, here this sentence is, it should also be mandatory for RBI to be transparent. Mandatory. Please look into this example. It is mandatory to obey traffic signals. So, one has to obey the law of the land. That means it must be done because of law of the land. RBI came into existence because of RBI Act of 1934. So, please follow whatever is mentioned in the statute. Please do not violate it. We cannot violate traffic signal. So, obeying traffic signals is mandatory. Mandatory means must be done because it is as per the law of the land. So, RBI also, it should also be mandatory for RBI to be transparent. It cannot say that we do not have figures. So, it should be mandatory for RBI to be transparent. Transparent, we have discussed previously. Transparent means most of the government organizations, I gave one example. Transparent means businesses or governments in open way without secrecy. Secrecy should be bare minimum. Everything should be open. Nowadays, most of the government organizations are not transparent in their day-to-day functioning. I have taken this example only to explain you the meaning of transparent. So, it must be made mandatory for RBI to be transparent. Why secrecy is required? How many notes came to your banks? Then the next one is public domain. Everything should be in the public domain except very few things. So, public domain means it should be available to the public. Why there is a lot of secrecy? When organizations are functioning with the secrecy, that lead to allegations. So, organizations must function with more and more transparency. It should be mandatory. Simultaneously, what is the meaning of simultaneously? We talked about one word, consequently. Consequently means as a result. What is simultaneously? Simultaneously means, please look at this example. There are several bomb blasts in Mumbai city simultaneously. That means happening at exactly the same time. So, please differentiate between consequently, simultaneously. Simultaneously means happening or being done exactly at the same time. So, simultaneously, the government must take its responsibility seriously. Government also should be serious. It should fill vacant positions on RBI's central board. There are several vacant positions in RBI central board and they must be filled up. It is imperative, it is necessary to shore up, to strengthen RBI's credibility. It is also the government's duty, it is a necessity, it is necessary to build up, or you can say to strengthen RBI's credibility in the eyes of investors and rating agencies. In the eyes of investors, there are several rating agencies. If our India's credit rating is lost, then foreign countries will not give us money. So, it is imperative to shore up RBI's credibility in the eyes of investors and rating agencies, else otherwise if these things are not done, what will happen? If government is not serious, then what will happen? Vigorous drives by the Prime Minister as well as state governments such as Gujarat to garner investment for development and jobs will be seriously undermined. Here 3 words. Government should follow this. Government should take steps to shore up autonomy of Reserve Bank of India. Otherwise, Reserve Bank of India will be weakened in the eyes of international agencies. And if government do not take steps, if government does not take steps, then what will happen? Vigorous drives by the Prime Minister as well as some state governments will go waste. Vigorous. Vigorous means, that is, please look into this, vigorous means the Prime Minister as well as some state governments are vigorously trying to get investments, and some state governments are trying vigorously to get investments. If you take the example of Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, they are vigorously competing. That means they are making energetic efforts. So, vigorously means trying to do something with force or energy. Doing normal things, you should not use this word. This word is to be used when something is done with force, with energy. So, government is vigorously pursuing the process of shift to digital transactions. Government is forcibly trying to shift to digital transactions. Under those circumstances, only vigorously is to be used, not always. So, here the meaning is, the sentence is very important, else otherwise. This vigorous drives by the Prime Minister and state governments to garner investment for development and jobs, to garner foreign investment. What is the meaning of garner? Garner is to be used if you are getting something after much difficulty. You should not use every time. If you are getting something after much difficulty, then only you have to use this word. So, governments are making vigorous attempts to get foreign investments, to garner foreign investments, because several countries are competing for foreign investments. So, forceful actions are required, and after forceful actions only you will garner investments. So, this garner is to be used normally after much difficulty, not always. So, the efforts, vigorous efforts made by the Prime Minister and some states to garner foreign investment will be undermined, right. So, totally undermined means totally it will not succeed, there is less likelihood of successful. So, this is less likely to succeed. In this context, this is used here. So, undermining has got several other aspects also. Under 2-3 cases you can use this undermining. The attitude of CEO undermines the confidence of employees. If CEO scolds everybody always, then the attitude of CEO undermines the confidence of employees. That means it makes employees less confident, they lose their self confidence also. Then criticism undermines the confidence. Don't criticize anyone. So, when you are criticizing, the person's confidence will be becoming less. That means confidence will be lessened. Under those circumstances, undermine is used. So, undermines, it should be used carefully. There are 2-3 meanings for this. One is, I have given 2 examples. The third example is here, less likely to succeed in the present statement. Please look at the present statement. Vigorous drives by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well as state governments such as Gujarat to garner investment for development and jobs will be seriously undermined. That means it may be less successful or it may not succeed much. Under that context, this word is used, right. So, the words we have learned. And with this, we came to the end of today's discussion, and here the most important aspect is please do not undermine the importance of RBI, please protect the autonomy of RBI, credibility of RBI, otherwise rating agencies will look down RBI subsequently. It will be very difficult, it will become very difficult for us to get investments from abroad. So, that is the total message. The final message is, do not undermine the credibility of Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India's credibility, autonomy must be protected, right. So, tomorrow we are going to deliberate budget 2017, why do we need an institutional evaluation mechanism, and my request is, please download one day in advance, please make efforts to understand the passage, then listen to this lecture, then this way you can learn better, right friends. With this, let us conclude today's comprehension. Have a nice day. Thank you. Thanks a lot.